When people speak the name Ozzy Osbourne, it's often accompanied by laughter, disbelief, or awe. He's a man who lived out his life on the knife's edge, daring fate to blink first, and somehow, fate never did. Ozzy didn't just survive rock and roll, he became the embodiment of what it meant to endure it. In a world where the flames of stardom burn hot and fast, leaving behind ashes of wasted talent and lost potential, Ozzy walked through the inferno and came out scarred, limping, hilarious, and very much alive. His story is not just one of music. It's a story of survival, self-destruction, family, and reinvention. And in the center of all of it stood a man who defied every expectation, both good and bad. He was born John Michael Osborne on December 3, 1948, in the gritty heart of Aston, Birmingham. The world he entered was not one of opportunity, but of endurance. Post-war Britain was a place of scarcity, and Aston, with its smog-drenched air and clang of factories, was a cradle of blue-collar resilience. Ozzy's father, Jack, worked long nights as a toolmaker. His mother, Lillian, was a factory worker whose days were measured by shifts and sacrifices. Together, they did what they could to provide for 6 children in a cramped 2-bedroom home. There was no illusion of comfort, but there was structure, discipline, and, above all, love. Ozzy was an odd child, bright in bursts, but often overwhelmed. He was plagued by undiagnosed learning disabilities, a stutter, and a sense that he didn't quite fit into the world's mold. School was a daily exercise in failure, and he found more companionship in music than in textbooks. When he first heard the Beatles, something in his mind cracked open. Music wasn't just entertainment, it was an escape hatch. It was proof that someone like him could matter. But before music could save him, Ozzy found himself spiraling into the kind of trouble that tends to swallow young men whole. He floated through odd jobs, including a grim stint at a slaughterhouse, and dabbled in petty theft. His first arrest came from stealing a TV and breaking into a clothing store. Unable to pay the fine, he spent time in Winson Green Prison, a short but sobering experience. That brush with confinement served as a wake-up call. He wasn't meant for bars, literal or metaphorical. He needed a way out. And when music came calling again, he answered with everything he had. The late 1960s were the breeding ground for a musical revolution, and Ozzy Osbourne became its most unlikely prophet. Teaming up with Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward, he co-founded Black Sabbath, a band that would turn rock music on its head. They didn't sound like anyone else because they didn't want to. Sabbath's music was dark, sludgy, heavy. It reflected the decaying steel mills and the cold, gray skies of England's industrial landscape. Ozzy's voice, piercing, haunting, almost otherworldly, floated above the wall of sound like a ghost in a machine. Songs like War Pigs, Iron Man, and Black Sabbath weren't just music, they were dirges for a generation disillusioned by war and economic decay. But with fame came excess, and Ozzy leaned into it with ferocity. Drugs, alcohol, and chaos became daily rituals. He wasn't just a rock star, he was a walking headline. Stories of hotel room destructions, drug-fueled rampages, and outrageous stunts, like biting the head off a bat on stage, became part of his mythology. The world laughed, gasped, and cheered, but behind the spectacle was a man unraveling. In 1979, that unraveling caught up to him when Black Sabbath fired him. For Ozzy, it was both a devastating blow and a strange liberation. He spiraled deeper into substance abuse, at one point locking himself in a hotel room for days with nothing but booze and narcotics. But then came a lifeline. Sharon Arden, daughter of music manager Don Arden, stepped into his life not just as a partner, but as a savior. Sharon saw through the mess, saw the potential still glowing dimly inside him. She helped pick him up, quite literally, off the floor and urged him to rebuild. And rebuild he did. With Sharon by his side, Ozzy launched a solo career that would eclipse even his Black Sabbath fame. His debut solo album, Blizzard of Oz, introduced the world to hits like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley, blending melodic hooks with blistering guitar solos courtesy of the late Randy Rhoads. More albums followed, Diary of a Madman, Bark at the Moon, The Ultimate Sin, each solidifying Ozzy as not just a survivor of the 70s but a dominant force in the 80s. Against all odds, he had rebranded himself without losing the chaos that made him magnetic. But chaos never stayed far. Tragedy followed Ozzy like a shadow. The 1982 death of Randy Rhoads in a plane crash devastated him. Addictions continued to torment him. Yet, somehow, he kept going. For every fall, there was a claw back to stability. Sharon, now his wife, remained his anchor. Together, they created not just a marriage but a business, a brand, and a family. Their 3 children, Amy, Kelly, and Jack, grew up amidst the wild backdrop of rock and roll, yet they, too, found their voices. In 2002, the world was reintroduced to Ozzy in the most unexpected of ways, through a reality TV show. The Osbournes was unlike anything MTV had aired. It was chaotic, filled with bleeped-out profanity, weird pets, family squabbles, and behind-the-scenes looks at a life that was both bizarre and oddly relatable. Fans saw a different Ozzy, confused by remotes, doting on his children, hilariously reacting to life's mundane tasks. The Prince of Darkness was now the world's favorite dysfunctional dad. It was endearing, and it reminded everyone that beneath the persona was a man, a real man, with flaws, fears, and a family who loved him deeply. The later years of Ozzy's life have been marked by introspection, health struggles, and an unshakable desire to keep going. He battled Parkinson's disease, underwent multiple surgeries, and was forced to cancel several tours due to his declining physical condition. Yet through all of it, he never stopped trying. He released new music, including the critically acclaimed Ordinary Man and Patient Number 9. His voice, worn but recognizable, still had something to say. And the world still wanted to listen. More than anything, Ozzy's legacy is about the fight. He's the kid from Aston who was told he'd never make it. He's the prisoner who became a poet of the dark. He's the addict who faced down death more times than we can count. He's the man who turned failure into fuel, trauma into art, and madness into meaning. In a world that often rewards the polished and the predictable, Ozzy stayed gloriously raw. He was never supposed to be perfect. He was supposed to be real. He didn't wear his past like a badge of shame. He wore it like armor. In countless interviews, he's laughed at his own mistakes, mourned his losses, and expressed deep gratitude for the second, third, and fourth chances he's been given. His survival isn't just physical, it's emotional, spiritual. He's learned to sit with his demons instead of running from them. And in doing so, he gave the world permission to be messy, too. When Ozzy passed away on July 22, 2025, at the age of 76, the world lost more than a rock star. It lost a storyteller, a cultural lightning rod, a survivor. His death marked the end of an era, but his story, his music, and his spirit remain immortal. Through decades of darkness, he managed to shine. Through addiction and loss, he found family and redemption. Through screams and riffs, he gave the world a language for pain and joy alike. Thank you for taking the time to honor the life of Ozzy Osbourne, a man who stumbled, soared, and sang his truth louder than anyone dared. His journey was never neat or easy, but it was real, and in that honesty, he gave generations of fans the courage to embrace their flaws and keep pushing forward. If Ozzy's story of survival, transformation, and wild resilience touched you, pass it along. Share it. Celebrate it. And never forget, sometimes, the loudest voices come from those who've battled the most silence.